So we're here today with Doug Carlson with Liberty Tire Recycling. We're at the AASHTO meeting. It's August 8th, and here in Biloxi, Mississippi. Asked Doug to give a few comments about what is happening in relationship of the cost factors of ground tire rubber, polymer, and asphalt, since I know he's very intimately familiar with those, and how it impacts what's happening with the market today. And I'll let him introduce himself and what he does with Liberty Tire, and then he can go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm Doug Carlson. I'm Vice President of Asphalt Products for Liberty Tire Recycling, and I provide technical services to agency personnel to modify specifications to allow tire rubber in as an alternative modifier. And the growing interest in this field, using tire rubber as an alternative modifier to virgin polymer, has really grown because of the cost issues. Way back when, in the 1990s, asphalt used to be much more expensive than the ground tire rubber or the recycled tire rubber. So one of the arguments against using rubber in asphalt was that it added too much cost. And with budgets as high as they are today, that's just an impossible entry point. You can't, although life cycles can be increased and there's some value to that, it's a very hard entry point to an agency to have a really high initial cost. So things have changed though. One issue related to asphalt is that it's almost directly correlated with the cost of crude oil. So as crude oil increases, asphalt will increase. And since about 2006, the cost of asphalt has surpassed the cost of rubber pound for pound. So this presents an economic advantage to tire rubber in many ways. One is to use rubber as an alternative modifier. Getting back to the virgin modifiers that are commonly used, polymers, they're made out of crude oil. So when crude oil goes up, the cost of the polymers go up. And sometimes the raw materials to make the polymers are not even available in the marketplace. So it creates scarcity for the polymer modified asphalt that comes from the polymers. So the ability to use tire rubber as an alternative modifier is providing not only a stability in your source and supply of modifiers, because there's plenty of scrap tire rubber to be processed, but secondly, it also provides an incredible cost advantage because tire rubber is so much lower in cost compared to the polymer modifiers. So it's right about now, it's the cost differential between tire rubber and SBS polymer, for example, one of the more popular asphalt modifiers. It's about, say, like 30 cents a pound at most for the rubber and $2 a pound for the polymer. So there's a distinct cost advantage to use tire rubber as a modifier.
I think you have a graphic here too that we can show, and I'm going to pan over to it, and I'll ask you a couple questions about it. This is a graphic that you created, and it has the domestic increase in cost of crude oil, gas. I assume you mean gasoline.
Yes.
And then there's also a line here for what's happening with ground tire rubber.
Sure.
And these are kind of relative costs, I would say, but they give you a sense of what's going on. I mean, it changes daily, of course, and monthly, but the important point, which I'll let you expand on, is what is happening with the ground tire rubber, or not happening for that matter.
Okay. Yeah, again, this chart goes from, say, like July, middle of 1996 to the middle of 2011. So a pretty long range history there. The crude oil is in the blue line, and the yellow line represents asphalt. And the red line, I put the gasoline price in there for the just common person so they can figure out, give them some reference point. And the green line, even though it's flat, it would, fluctuate just a little bit up and down, but tire rubber in general hasn't changed much in cost or price to the marketplace in 15 years. It's pretty much the same price today. So this is, when people think about tire rubber, they think about the 90s when they first gave it a try, and indeed rubber cost way more than asphalt. But now that it's all changed, asphalt is much more expensive. We're over here in this ballpark. It's about $600 a ton, and rubber can be anywhere from $300 to $400 a ton.
So this is that price differential, and although we don't have it on this chart, it's a little hard to integrate it in. The polymer costs have pretty much tracked with the cost of crude oil or with gasoline, but they've also gone up maybe even more than proportionally with those two, because like you say, there are some scarcity factors as well.
Yeah, generally speaking, surveying some of the state materials engineers, their polymer modified costs are usually about $100 to $150 a ton more than their regular asphalt. Mm-hmm. So if they're paying about $600 a ton for regular asphalt, you would expect a polymer modified asphalt in the same marketplace to be about $750 a ton. So
I'm going to pan back over here to Doug because I have a couple little comments to make here. We're speaking here about the cost of these materials, first of all, in tons, and these are U.S. tons, not metric tons. So for those of you out there who are the metric bunch, just remember there's, it's a little heavier than it's about 10% heavier than a U.S. ton. The other thing too is when we say asphalt here, we mean the bitumen or the bitumen. We're talking about the part of the mix that is the binder. This is the asphalt binder cost per ton. Sometimes that's just a little confusing. If you go to Europe and you say asphalt, they think of the mix rather than, these are all costs of the liquid portion. You might make a comment here on, since these liquid tons of asphalt or polymer modified asphalt or ground tire rubber modified asphalt go into a mix, many people in many states don't really know how much the binder costs because they don't actually have an item for that, but they know how much the mix costs. So maybe in that respect, if you could just talk maybe in a percentage sense or whatever way you would like, we've seen the costs of mixes increase kind of along the lines of the crude oil. So like if you went back 5 or 6 years ago, a cost per ton of mix in the U.S., and you can correct me, has gone up in a percentage sense quite a bit. Maybe you could just comment on that kind of and keep that in kind of a rough zone because it varies all over with states and countries and so on. But if you would comment on it and then just kind of give an idea of what's happened when you add the polymer or the rubber to the base cost of a normal, say normal mix.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's in regard to the liquid cost in the mix, it's half or more of the total cost of the mix, of the binder cost. Even though the binder, the bitumen, the asphalt, is only 5% of the mix, it's half or more than half of the mix cost. Rocks are relatively inexpensive aggregate. So in a typical mix today, I would expect to see about $30 worth of binder or bitumen or asphalt, the liquid asphalt. And if it's a polymer modified asphalt, that would add about $6 or so in the cost of the polymer to modify that asphalt. So that's about $36. In regard to rubber, there is one advantage. Well, let me back up. In regard to rubber, it requires about 3 times the loading than regular polymer. So if you have 1 pound of polymer in a mix, you would put 3 pounds of rubber to get the same effect. But however, there's a significant cost advantage. So if you're expecting to add about $6 of cost when you use polymer, With rubber, it would be, say, like 90 cents. So it could be a very dramatic decrease in the cost for modification to get the same benefits, same engineering properties, because tire rubber is less expensive than SBS polymer. It creates a great deal of value there.
I know there's also been some discussion about maybe substituting some ground tire rubber for just regular asphalt, kind of creating kind of a premium grade, albeit it would be treated just like a normal routine grade of asphalt. The only thing is it would have some percentage of ground tire rubber in it. Maybe you could comment on that. This is the first case you gave, I think, was more like comparing the cost of polymer asphalt to ground tire rubber asphalt. But let's say you're a state that just uses regular asphalt. You don't have any polymer in it. Since rubber is cheaper than asphalt, could it not be postulated, and I think some people are talking about this, to just buy some amount of rubber, some percentage, say 5%, 10%, whatever, to replace the expensive asphalt, and just go ahead and mix it in and treat it as a PG graded asphalt? But in reality, it would actually be a premium grade, and you would conceivably either be at the same price, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more, but it would now suddenly be a premium grade for really not doing much of anything.
Right. Well, there's currently we're looking at this issue of using rubber as a filler to asphalt. You're not trying to meet a modification or a different specification. You're just putting rubber in the asphalt to extend it or to fill it. So the question is, at what content does the rubber start to interfere with the effective asphalt content in the mixture? You know, it starts to interfere with the glue that hold the rocks together. I still don't have an answer, but it appears to be about 5%, and at about a 5% loading of rubber into the bitumen or the asphalt, it does not seem to interfere with the film thickness, the effective asphalt content in the mix, or the mix volumetrics. So the challenge then is the cost of adding the rubber to the asphalt. You know, how do you introduce it into the mixture? And most standard practices are adding the rubber through the binder, through the liquid, through the bitumen. So you add it to the liquid and then add it to the mix. And sometimes that equipment can be fairly expensive to use just one time. But we're seeing hot mix facilities or asphalt mix facilities install mixing equipment or blending equipment that would take the rubber and the asphalt, combine it together, and then shoot it into the hot plant. So where facilities have fixed costs, they don't have to worry about mobilization of equipment all the time. That's what adds cost usually to a rubber job. These fixed plants have got a lot of opportunity to put rubber in every mix. They could store just one base asphalt, save a little money by filling the asphalt or displacing a little asphalt. Again, that's that cost differential of depending on the rubber price. But rubber costs less than asphalt, so you're saving money pound for pound. And then there's also the ability for a plant mix producer to have just use one base grade of asphalt, and then they could use that for the regular mix, and when they need a modified mix, they just put more rubber in. It bumps the grade up, and you can make modified binders of very different grades. So, but to answer your question very simply, yeah, there is a growing interest to put rubber just in regular asphalt, just to use it as an extender and a filler to displace a higher cost liquid for a lower cost rubber material, which has great engineering properties and can save some money.
And it can be PG graded.
Correct.
Yeah. Doug, I thank you so much, and I'm sure in the future we'll hear more about all of these products, especially as PG grading with ground tire rubber moves along, and I thank you again.
Okay.